All right. Hello, potential future KSO musicians, violinists, and violists in particular. I'll be able to help you if you play the oboe. And hopefully I'll be able to help you with some of these excerpts, including this one, which is the Buckaroo Holiday from Rodeo, I guess I should say it right, by Aaron Copland. So if you haven't heard this piece, I would definitely give it a listen. It's a good one. Aaron Copland, American composer. People call him the cowboy composer, just because he composed a lot of cowboy-sounding stuff. And he loves, just like a lot of 20th century American composers, any composer really from the 20th century, crazy rhythmic stuff, which is a lot of what we'll talk about in here today. And then there's a couple of spots that are a little bit difficult for the hand, and we'll go over that a little bit as well. This video is mostly for the first violins. If you are viol or second, you'll still get a lot of use out of talking about all of the crazy counting and stuff like that that goes on in this one. And if you're a second violin, there is a couple of spots that are similar, so it's still worth it, I think, to take a look at the music that I'll send along with this video. Some of the fingerings and stuff like that. But for the most part, this one is for first violins, but of course you can listen along, gather as much information as you can so that you can make a good audition. And you can always email me or let me know in any way you can, basically, if you need some help, if you need fingerings, or if you need me to play something and send it in, just so you can hear what it sounds like, although I will ask if you've listened to the recording. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and break into this one. So very first thing, it's in 2/4 already, or cut time, technically, sorry, 2/2. It's in 2/2 cut time. But we're going to want to subdivide quite a bit with this one. We're going to want to subdivide by quarter notes and eighth notes at different times because, well, it's Copland and he's doing a lot of stuff with the rhythm. So if we take a look at the very beginning, if I count at 2, is that going to be too loud? That should be good. If I'm stomping a 2, I'm going to clap the very beginning of this one. 1 and 2. Bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba. 1E and ba, 2E and ba. That's probably the hardest part there. So you can get away with subdividing by the quarter note pretty much all the way up until whatever that is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Measures 9 and 10. We have a beat that's just a little bit on the offbeat. So that one in particular is relatively challenging. What I've been doing is I break it up at that point into eighth notes. So ba 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 da ba da ba, 1E and da, 2E and ba. Or, well, 1E and. It's 1E and on both of them. But you get the idea. You'll have to kind of make that switch in your head unless you have a fancy enough metronome that can go back and forth between those two. But it's easy enough to do as long as you have a metronome on that half note beat. Or even on the quarter note beat. Something faster. Bum 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 ba dum ba 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Ba 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 da ba da ba. 1E and 2. Da 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 ba. Right? So you got to think about that pretty quickly. Anyway, then later on, we have a couple of spots that look similar but are a little bit different, and this is especially going to be the case in the second excerpt. So far I'm talking about the first excerpt, of course. For the first excerpt, when you get to measure, whatever that is, I probably should have measured this thing. 1, 2, 3. 3 before circle 2. You have a quarter rest, quarter note, eighth rest, quarter note, and an eighth note, right? Which is a little bit, especially when it's moving fast, that one's a little bit challenging. Ba, 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 da, right, is the way to do that. So you'd want to think about the 2. 1, 2, 1, and ba, ba, da. If you need to subdivide it by the quarter note, 1 and 2 and ba, 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 da. Right? So that one's that one there, and then a lot of the rhythm is pretty much the same after that one. You get another one of those crazy 1E ands coming up 3 after 3. Da 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 ba, da 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 da. You have to just think about that really quick. And then the other thing is just make sure you're counting the rests, because it's really easy with this one, because it's kind of fast and furious to get caught up in the notes, and then you're like, uh-oh, how long have I been sitting here? Oh, come in, right? So make sure you count the rest, because he will, of course, notice that kind of thing. Okay, let's look at the second one. Second one has a lot of the same stuff going on. It's still in 2/2. It looks like we start out in a brand new key. I'm assuming A flat major. Yeah, A flat major. We have a lot of sforzandos in there. He will be listening for those, so that's one extra thing I would definitely pay attention to in this one in particular. But I mostly want to talk about the crazy rhythmic stuff that happens when we get past 15. In fact, actually right after 15. So if you look at 15, the two measures I'm thinking about the most are 3, 4, 5 after 15 and 4 after 16. They look like they should be the same, but they're not, and be careful because they do sound different, and of course, Dr. Navis will figure that out if you play the wrong one. So let's talk about just those two measures first. Right at 15, we've got a quarter note, quarter rest, eighth rest, quarter note tied with a rearticulated tie to another eighth note there. Ba, 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 da. Right, so you have to wait a little bit there in the middle. You've got to wait an extra eighth rest, unlike the one on the first page and unlike the one that's down there past 16. Right, so if I'm dividing it by the quarter note, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, and ba, ba, da. So you have to wait that extra little beat. Let me show you what I mean. I'll go and clap the 1, 4 after 16. If I'm dividing that one by the quarter note, ba, ba, da, da. So that one we come right on beat 2, but the first one we don't come on beat 2. So you have to make sure that you have that in your brain. Otherwise, it's just really easy to do. Anyway, so if we take a look at that, for the most part, everything after that, I know there's a little bit of goofiness with that weird ba-da-ba-da-ba at the very end, but if you listen, you'll pick that up pretty easily. And it's not that challenging, it's just suddenly a lot faster. Okay, so now let's talk about, there's two spots in here that are particularly challenging for the left hand for first violinist. There's also, I think, one little spot in here that's the same for second violinist, so I'm going to talk about those. The spots I am talking about, well, we already know we have to play really high. We know that as first violinists, so I'm not going to go over like at circle 1, for instance. At circle 2, 3 after circle 2, where it starts there, main thing is you've got a very fast shift on the and of 1. That's going to be pretty quick. Da, ba, da, 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 da. Can you do a extension? I wouldn't. It's going to be a little bit too challenging for that. You don't necessarily want to have to hold open a 10th the entire time, especially since you don't have a lot of time to prepare for that. So I would just get really good at finding those 3 notes. Especially going back and forth between the E and the C. Obviously, they've got a major third between them, so it should be pretty easy to listen to that between the C and the E. Of course, I guess a sixth if you think about it backwards, but I would just think about it that way. And yeah, so that's that spot right there. And then the spot 2 after circle 4 is kind of like that spot, but it just gets a little bit crazier, so I wanted to show you that one too. So that one, we're not actually going to be shifting down after the E. We're going to stay in position. Just jump it over to the D with that same 3. Now this you have to reach. Then you jump back down. And then this little spot. That's just kind of a panic spot. You just gotta and fly down there basically. So to reiterate, make sure that when you're practicing this one, practice it slow for that intonation, and then playing it a little bit faster is a little bit easier, of course. So I'll take that little spot. I haven't practiced it until it's all the way up to speed yet, but I will try to play it slow and then speed it up a little bit just to give you an example. One little thing, from the D flat to the A flat, I have to I even put the indication in my music to smash. I did that after I took a copy, so you won't see that on there. To smash that finger so that I make sure that I get on both of those notes, because there's nothing worse than barely being on there and you get a little squeak or something like that. So make sure you smash that note. Okay, I'll do it one more time a little faster. just basically practice it like that over and over again until, of course, you get it up to speed. Over on the second excerpt, I was talking about the first excerpt, just in case I forgot to say that. On the second excerpt, it looks like we don't have two craziest spots except for, well, actually, sorry, we do. We have two crazy spots, I should say that. One after, so 2 after 17. If you look at the music, if you look at my fingering, I have it starting on the A string because, well, the notes are just really high. We should use that. For that one, there's a lot of crazy shifts. So I have a 3. I reach over 4/4 for that A. Then I've got to jump back down to 4th position to find that F with my 2. And then that's right across, just like that. Then the 4. Then I sneak shift down. And then my 4th finger's ready for it. So I'll do that again, just so that you can see it. Let's see, I gotta find it. And I would practice it with that little bit of a space in between, because it can help you get a clean shift. And especially when you're moving fast, you'll want to pause that bow so that you don't have a bunch of it's kind of sliding all over the place. Of course, he will be listening for that. He wants it to be nice and clean. This isn't Mozart. I would say it's more Mozart, though, than like a Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky, we can get away with kind of sliding around and being very romantic. This is a little more rhythmic. Right, so we want to make sure that it's clean so that people can hear that. Okay, very last left-hand spot is the spot 2 after 19, or pick up to 3 after 19. Once again, starting on the A string, because you might as well. You hop it over. Now this is the hard part. Replacing the one where your 3 just was, but without it, you'll have to do a weirder shift later, so that's usually the best shift to do there. Then we get first position. There we go. So at the end of it, it makes it a little bit easier because we can play it in first position, but up until that point, it's in like 5 different positions. So I'll show it to you one more time. So on and so forth. And like I said, I would definitely practice it slow. Then, of course, speed it up. You can use a metronome. Any setting, I think, would be good. 2/2. Mine doesn't have 2/2. It has 2/4. But it still has 2 beats, so you can still work it the same way. You can try subdividing by the 8th note, but then remember that you've got to count 4 in your head for every half note, obviously, or 2 for every quarter note. Just make sure you're kind of thinking about that as you're subdividing it. You don't want to actually make some notes a little bit too fast. All right, I hope this helped. If you have any questions, you can always get a hold of me. In case for some reason you don't know it, my email is jbwall@mtu.edu, jbwall, just like what's behind me here, at mtu.edu, just like everybody's email address. And I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have. Happy practicing.